The goal of this channel is to level up newcomers in the field of DevOps, GitOps, and the everything is code times we're living in. The focus has been on Terraform recently, a very popular infrastructure as code tool, but today I wanted to deviate a bit and offer you another interview. I'm Olaf Gradin, and this is Courtney McShane. We are tech industry colleagues dedicated to exploring cool tech and giving voice to market newcomers. Speaking with us today is Dmitry Panenkov, founder and cloud visionary of a product called Emma. Dmitry started his career in 2002 as a network engineer, then leading the sales and business development teams at global technology companies like Arista Networks, Juniper Networks, and Allot. Dmitry is based out of Luxembourg, where his top talent team delivers the most efficient and scalable cloud management platform to more than 20 countries around the world.
Very excited to have you, Dmitry. So could you give a quick snapshot of your career prior to Emma, and what was the nucleus that launched you to become an entrepreneur?
So thanks for this question. So that's true. I started my career 20 years ago as a system engineer, and then I've made this transition to the sales guy. So it's not that, let's say, strange thing, but I led the different sales teams at Arista Networks and Juniper Networks, primarily in the European region. So it was really interesting. For example, the compound portfolio in terms of sales I led was around like $500 million United States dollars. So it's pretty impressive. I had a top 15 global accounts I worked with at these companies. And 3.5 years back, I left my last big enterprise to build my own company, to start Emma. So I've been thinking that there are a lot of companies on the market who struggle with the multi-cloud reality, and it drove me to start my own company to address all these pitfalls and the problems they face with. So that's how it started.
And did you come up with this idea yourself? Do you have an army of people? Was it you and a friend in a coffee shop? Like, what was the nucleus of the idea, and how did it all form?
My last company I worked for was Arista Networks. It's a cloud networking company. They're pretty impressive and a big one. So they produce the networking switches to support the cloud goals of the enterprises. And at that time, so I met a lot of companies and the peers, primarily the cloud architects and the CTOs. And I heard a lot of stuff regarding the multi-cloud and the problems they are facing with. So, for instance, managing different cloud environments, no matter if it's public and private, hybrid cloud, or the couple of public clouds, it's not that simple as it sounds. So that's why I felt inside myself that there is a niche, and probably it makes sense to start a new venture to address all these pitfalls.
Yeah, no doubt. It's a huge pain point in the industry. So I have a inkling that the name Emma comes from something personal. Can you share where the name came from?
Yeah, that's true. So basically, Emma means Enterprise Multi-Cloud Management Application. So it sounds like really cool acronym. But the story behind this name is a bit personal. So I'm really happy husband. My wife she's beautiful, and my son, he's one of the. I think he's the best son in the world. And we wanted to have a daughter as well. But after my wife has delivered our son, she had a problem with her back. So really hard problem is a her back, and we met a couple of professionals, so the doctors, and they told us that most likely we won't be able to have another child. So and we always wanted to have also the sister for my son, so the daughter, and we had this thought in mind to call the daughter Emma. So that's why we decided to call the company Emma. So that's my daughter, actually.
Wow.
And then you had to work backward to find a way to make a word for every one of the letters.
Yeah, it was not that hard to do, actually.
That's beautiful and tragic at the same time. You can tell that it is a deep meaning, and having that connection, both personal and business wise. It's truly your baby. People say, "Oh yeah, this project is my baby." No, this is truly your baby in every literal sense of the word. So tell us what Emma is. If you could just give us a high level overview and pitch, if you will. What is Emma in 3 sentences?
Yeah, sure. So Emma is a cloud equalizer that helps companies to manage, deploy, and maintain the different applications and the workloads into the clouds, no matter what the cloud service provider is the underlying. So that's the goal of the platform. So the comprehensive cloud platform that addresses all the multi-cloud pitfalls and pain points that customers have.
And what would you say is Emma's major competitive advantages? What makes it unique?
As an engineer, even if my first manager thought that I'm not that good engineer, I started with the foundations. So I have analyzed all the other companies on the market who address the multi-cloud problems, let's say. And I understood that all these guys, they try to solve the really niche and narrow problems. And the problem is that the multi-cloud world and multi-cloud universe is broader. And we started with the foundations. So we've built the comprehensive network connectivity that connects all the cloud service providers we have under the platform, providing the comprehensive network and backbone connectivity. And on top of this network, we provide the ability to deploy the apps, instances, clusters, and all this stuff that we have at Emma. So that's the thing that makes us unique. So that's the pure equalizer. So the platform that equalizes all the clouds through this networking backbone and allows you to deploy anything on top. So the pure overlay, let's say.
I'm guessing that there's probably some pretty interesting technical specs of that backend network. Can you speak a little bit about the capabilities of that interconnect?
Yeah, sure. So we can provide our customers with a networking backbone that supports the data transfers and provides the ability and capabilities to deploy let's say the multi-cloud clusters with the let's say internal connectivity on a speed up to 400 gigabits per second per customer. So that's really fast. We had our internal POC where we had like the huge distributed Kubernetes cluster where the master nodes were located somewhere in Europe and the worker nodes were distributed between Asia Pacific region, United States of America, South Africa, and Europe. And that was the real time working cluster with the auto scaling that could scale up and down depending on the workload. So that's the capabilities of our network.
I know that you can do VM transfers between clouds, and I think that's a phenomenal capability. I can see a lot of interest in that. Does that mean that you're using that backbone to do the transfer, or are you doing it really through like infrastructure as code paradigms?
We actually do both. So what we need to understand that Emma is a platform that is built like the modular system. So we have the API gateway as a central tool, and we have the different services in, let's say, user space. We also provide our customers with the automation tools. So we have the Terraform provider and Terraform that will interact with our API gateway, and also through the Terraform provider and through our API gateway, through our CLI. We have our own CLI tool. You can also do the transfers, and we definitely use our own networking backbone to transfer the data between the VMs. But the transfers of the VMs we do, let's say, with our own tools and our own engine. We have invented, because actually it really depends on a cloud service provider. You have as a data source, and the provider you have as a destination, because every time these providers and all these let's say processes, they're pretty different, and you need to figure out the relevant set of tools you need to use to make this transfer happen. So that's what we've been able to automate with Emma as well. But this is not what you are doing every day. But anyway, it's a nice to have feature to support your, let's say, migrations.
You mentioned autoscaling too, so I seem to remember that you have like an interesting scaler, maybe a predictive scaler. Can you tell us a little bit about how that works? I think it was machine learning based, right?
Yeah, that's true. So we have our own managed Kubernetes service in a multi-cloud. What does this really mean? You can deploy your distributed cluster, as I told you. So you build deploy your master nodes in Europe, your worker nodes in the Asia Pacific, United States, and also there is an autoscaler part. So you can scale your cluster depending on the workloads, depending on the analysis that we provide you using our machine learning algorithm, which actually can predict the growth of workloads and the usage of your resources. And then we can extrapolate this into the future, and then we can find you the best available option to scale on the market. So for instance, it could be like the spot instance at Google Cloud. Somewhere in Virginia, it will be the cheapest available option based on your request. So it should contain the number of the CPUs, RAM, and the storage, whatever. But when we feel and we see that your cluster needs to scale based on the workloads, it will scale on this spot instance. And if this spot instance is taken away, we will rescale your cluster to the other similar spot instance somewhere, let's say at Asia and South Africa or whatever else. So we always will be fitting your budget with our autoscaler.
Yeah, like a cross-cloud calculator. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. So, and I guess pertaining somewhat to that is the idea of this marketplace and the services that you have. So you're able to chain services together, and perhaps that's part of this overall scaling solution as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So we have the different set of tools. So we have the services like the compute resources, plain VMs, let's say. We also have the Kubernetes. We also have the backup, the networking part. And on top of that, we have our e-store. So this is the marketplace of applications where you can grab the app you need from the different verticals, categories like security, DevOps, networking, and analytics or whatever. And then you can deploy this app based on your requirements. So if you want to have a disaster recovery database, you can deploy this database with the primary and the secondary node located at the different cloud service providers, and even in different regions, so to avoid any outages. Yeah, so that's why we have this underlying networking backbone that supports all these things. That's why we started with this foundation.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that sounds really smart. So we've been talking about cloud capabilities, but you're actually not limited to that. So you also have, I think, what are referred to as private accounts. So for something like VMware, you can actually integrate with the APIs that are exposed by vSphere ESX. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true. It's more about vSphere. So we work with ESXi right now as well, but basically we started with vSphere because we address the mature companies and the enterprises who have hardly invested for the decades in the hardware and the legacy solutions. And excuse me, the VMware is a top legacy hypervisor, right? So we realized this, and we decided to build kind of a connector to the private accounts of our customers to help them to simplify their lives. So they can now with these connectors lift and shift their workloads into the public clouds. And we support them not only with this connector, but also with what we have already discussed. I mean, the ability to make these cloud transfers. So you can just transfer your VMs and the workloads from one, let's say, service provider. And for us, the vSphere is a kind of a service provider to another, let's say, AWS, Azure, Google, any other public cloud.
Have you seen significant growth or trends in that specific domain? There seems to be, I guess, a lot of companies who are coming up with, this is the most important mission of the next couple of years is to become, more cloud native, if you will. What sort of trends are you seeing with the customers that you work with?
That's a good question.
If you ask a company that's a hardware type company, they'll say that there's a lot of repatriation, meaning they went all cloud and now they're coming back on-prem because of cost.
Yeah. So we see a few trends, and they are sometimes pretty much opposite, right? So we see the huge enterprises who really want to become a cloud native companies. So they really struggle, but on the other hand, they have invested a lot in the hardware, and they continue to do this. On the other hand, we see the cloud native companies who suddenly realized that the cloud costs are really high. So we have recently read the report of Andreessen Horowitz, the VC firm, regarding the percentage of the revenue that actually is applied to the cloud costs, and it's at the biggest software companies like Asana or Slack or Palantir or the other guys like Datadog. So it's nearly 50% out of cost of revenue that goes to the cloud spend. That's a lot. That's why these guys, as you've mentioned, they really are considering to make this shift from cloud to the on-prem, and that's the opposite trend. And on the other hand, we also see this third trend that there is a lack of the professionals on the market. Mm-hmm. So there is a lack of the high-skilled DevOps engineers, cloud ops engineers, FinOps guys who can support your cloud journey. And that's where we really believe Emma fits a lot, because we can support the first guys to lift and shift the workloads into the cloud. We can support the other guys to pass the let's say the data to the on-prem solutions like hardware servers or bare metal, and to manage this in a single interface. And on top of that, our interface or our automation tools are pretty much the same that you would like to use. So for instance, the interface is understandable. On the other hand, we have the support of Terraform and the other automation tools. You can manage your clouds the way you're familiar with. So we think Emma fits all these trends pretty much.
Yeah. I think what's interesting for some of the bigger companies that we were working for, some of the biggest value that we brought to the organization was training their employees, because talent was just like there is none, it didn't exist. And so we would offer a software and a platform, but you can't do much with it if you can't manage it. And so majority of our work was teaching some of their developers how to code in a cloud native 12-factor paired programming sort of way. What was the minimum viable product that you launched when kicking off the company? Like, what was the ugly thing that you just like brought to market? And what did that prototype look like?
When I started this venture,
listen, nobody has an ugly baby, okay?
Start somewhere.
when I started this, so I've built the prototype, the MVP, not the MVP, is like pre-MVP. It was a cloud calculator, so that showed you the best available and the cheapest virtual machine on the market. So, and then I've met a couple of my peers from the different enterprises, and I was really inspired. I've been thinking that, okay, that's the best product in the world. So I will convince everyone, so we'll win the market. So everything should be just amazing. But it was like a really hard hangover, because these guys, they told me really straightforward that this is a useless product. If you cannot rent this cheapest instance right away, that means that you shouldn't be care about the pricing tag on this instance, because in the next 5 minutes everything could like dramatically change. And for them it was like really useless. But in return, I have received the number of pain points they had, and that was my first feature request, including 27 different bullets they have mentioned as a pain points in a multi-cloud management. So we started with this.
You were talking just a moment ago about some of the patterns and use cases, the trends that you're seeing in the industry. So that brings me to a thought I had, and that is the target market. Like, who is your intended audience, and where are you going? How is that changing?
We started with the enterprises and the mature companies, and still we have our sweet spot as a mature company that has in use a couple of clouds. It could be a hybrid cloud, so meaning private and public. It could be a couple of public clouds. They also have a DevOps or any other ops teams who support their cloud environments. And on top of that, they spend nearly $100K per year on supportive tools like Cloud Health from VMware or any other tools, right? And this is our sweet spot. So the guys, they have a cloud environment, they have an ops teams, they understand they need an ops team to manage these cloud environments. And on top of that, these ops teams, they realize that to manage these cloud environments, they need supportive tools. So that's the sweet spot we address. But right now we have a lot of cloud native startups who use our platform because they understand that our interface is like really simple, really understandable. It equalizes all the differences they see at the different providers. And for them, it's easier to communicate with a single interface and deploy the apps, the clusters, and the workloads through the one solution instead of learning the different, let's say, tools they need to manage different cloud environments. So right now we see a lot of cloud native companies who actually come to us and join us as a customers.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because if you were a small to medium-sized business starting fresh on a cloud journey, right? All of your data center is actually in the cloud. You're actually bringing capability to them that many large enterprises desire, but they can't exercise that option, right? So you're obfuscating a lot of the complexity of multi-cloud, and you're providing it to them through this machine learning, intelligent scaling, cloud calculating platform. Which just seems amazing, right? It brings so much potential and capability to those small companies. I'm assuming that you may have like a customer success story that you could share.
Yeah, sure. I have my favorite one I'd like to share because it's all about the engineering and the future of let's say of the technology as well. We have a customer. Let's call it the Tesla's competitor, but in a public transportation. So that's one of the public companies in the market. I cannot name this company because of the NDA that we have, but let's say that's one of the public companies. They do the electric vehicles, and they have a pretty interesting use case. So they use Emma to run the Kubernetes clusters there, and these Kubernetes clusters, these clusters are responsible for the machine learning algorithms that calculate and recalculate the behavior of the vehicle. For instance, if you change the diameter of the wheel from, let's say, 19 to 21, everything changes for your vehicle, aerodynamics, the range, and all these things, right? And to recalculate all these changes, you need extra resources, right? And using Emma, you can actually scale your cluster to the cheapest spot instances, even the biggest ones. Use it for a while and then let it go. And using this service, this specific customer, they save around 57% on the cloud spending. So that's impressive, and this is my favorite use case.
What is 57% in dollar bills for this customer, approximately? Do you have any idea?
In US dollar?
Yeah. You know, like conversion in your head.
So I know the exact number. So let's say it's hundreds of thousands.
Transitioning to the future, what investments are you most excited about that will impact the future of Emma? And it could be investments of money or time or resources.
You know, I'm the founder who has his skin in the game in full. So I have invested all my money. I sold the number of the businesses and the apartments I had prior this company. So I think my best investment so far is my team. I do really believe that having this tremendous team allows us to build this product, and I think in the future it should turn to next cloud standard, pretty much the same standard that we had 3 to 4 decades ago in the internet, but it was like the standards, I mean, in terms of protocols. But the cloud is more complex, and it's not about the protocols. Right now it's about the levels of abstraction. And to build a next standard, you need a top talented team. And I think my best investment is my team. So that's the obvious answer here.
Does that mean that you might be growing in the near future?
Yeah, sure. So we will be growing in our future significantly.
I have two rapid fire closing questions for you, Dimitri.
Sure.
The first is, what is the book or books you've given most as a gift and why? And if gifts are not your love language and you don't give gifts, then what are 1 or 3 books that have greatly influenced your life?
So yeah, thanks for that. I think there are 3 books that have really changed my life. So the first and the most, I think, important book for me, it was the book written by Tony Shane, and the name of the book is Zappos Book Delivering Happiness. So it was like really, really impressive book for me, and it was a huge shock for me when Tony passed away. So I really suggest to your listeners, if they haven't read this book, to buy one. So that's one of the best books, I think. The other book that also inspired me a lot before the launch of the company is a Pixar book by Lawrence Levy. So it's To Pixar and Beyond. And this book is all about the corporate changes and the crisis that they had at Pixar, and how they've been locked in and this deal with the Disney, and how they figured it out, and all these things. And this book inspired me a lot. So that's the second one. And the third book, it's just the obvious, I think, suggestion for everyone who started the venture, the new venture, and plans to raise the funds. So it's Ben Horowitz, The Hard Thing About the Hard Things. Definitely, it helps a lot to understand how the VCs work, how you should manage your team, how should you manage the expectations of your board and let's say the shareholders. So that's the third book I suggest you to read.
Yeah, super powerful. Everybody loves books, so really appreciate your recommendations there. Second question, how has a failure or apparent failure set you up for later success? Do you have a favorite failure of yours?
Yeah, I do. I started as a businessman at the age of 17. So I was born in Russia, so that's important thing. I was born in Russia, and at the age of 17, I just have graduated from my high school. It was the year I had submitted the application to the university, and I decided to earn some money. So I decided to sell the steel. So to buy the steel from the supplier and sell it to one another, let's say, buyer. So I did that, and I earned, let's say, nearly 100,000 United States dollars. It was like the huge goal that I have achieved by myself. For instance, the salary of my parents per year was like pretty much the same, but that was the single deal.
That's
and
huge.
Then that's huge. And then one of my friends, he asked me about the favor. So he told me, okay, I know the guy. He wants to buy the fish for the pond. For the on this pond there was a kind of paid fishing advertising, so you can pay money and just grab the rod and go for the fishing. And this guy, he asked me, do I know anyone who can supply these guys with the fish, with a live fish, and I told him, yeah, sure, I know a lot of guys, sure. This Russia is a big country, come on, so it's not a problem. We'll do this easily. So and definitely I had no idea. I didn't have any contacts. So I used Google, and I called the guys somewhere in Astrakhan, so it's the region of Russia. So I called these guys and I asked them, okay, guys, can you deliver me the car, the truck full of fish, which is alive? And they told me, okay, yeah, sure, why not? We can do this. It will cost you 100,000 United States dollars. And I told them, fine, why not? Because I already have the agreement signed for 200,000. So for me, it was like the best deal. So I bought this fish and they have delivered and everything looked perfect. But the problem was these guys, they forgot that the fish, the live fish, it needs the oxygen to breathe. So it was just the track full of dead fish. And that's how I lost my first 100,000 of United States dollars. Yeah, that was really fast, just like 1 week, and you lose everything. Yeah.
Oh man.
That's
I like how you said that's how you lost your first $100,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Many other hundreds of thousands of dollars lost, but that was the first.
Yeah. So that was my biggest failure, and the lesson that I've learned out of this failure is the following thing: that you should be at least a guy who understands the processes.
Yeah.
Before you invest your money into a strange venture, right? Mm-hmm. And you should be like really involved in this process. You cannot just ask the guy from Astrakhan to deliver you a truck of a fish if you don't understand how this fish should be delivered.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense.
Goodness.
That is a tough lesson to learn. I can understand. Well, hey, listen, it's been really great having you. I wanted to check in and see if there's anything that you wanted to close with, if you have anything that we need to hear you in, if you've written any articles, and of course, how people can reach you and find out more about Emma.
So they can, first of all, visit my LinkedIn page. So I think you can share it in the description of the video. I usually answer to everyone who approaches me. On the other hand, they can visit our website. So we have the free credits to use our platform to play around and decide if what we do fits the requirements or the aims of any of the companies you target. And on top of that, there are a lot of things in the internet. I think the guys can read about the cloud and the multi-cloud, and also they can visit on a web summit if they travel to Portugal this year in November. So happy to meet anyone there.
Website can be found emma.ms.
Again, thank you so much for taking the time with us. I know it's late where you are, but it was great talking to you.
Thanks a lot for having me. It was my pleasure.
Thanks a lot.